In critique, I mean, critique is such an interesting thing in a master's program, in any context, really. And I think there were a lot of things that I learned from people who had already been through the program, like tips that maybe have been passed down, like amongst MFAs, and these are the five things that I thought were kind of the most interesting, maybe the most useful to me. The first thing is to not think of critique as a trial, but rather to think of it as a tool. It's not really something that's meant to be something that you get through. It's meant to be something that you use. And I think thinking about ways to make critique work for you and to leverage those times of when you can get real feedback from real people who are invested in your work, I think those are super valuable, and people should use those when they can. The next tip that I have is to come with questions to your critiques. Like have questions that you want answers to. That's a really useful way to make sure that you're using your critique in a way that's valuable to you. You will probably talk about other things too, and that's totally fine. But I think it's really good to come with those questions so that you can be sure to get something useful. Another piece of advice that has been really helpful to me is we all have situations in which somebody tells us that something isn't working, and they have suggestions about how to make it work. And I found that oftentimes when people say that something doesn't work, they're usually right, because that's coming from their experience of the work, and they're telling you what their experience of the work is, and they're probably correct about that. Sometimes when people suggest a solution for something, they may not be right about that. It may be that there's other solutions to the problem, but when people say that something doesn't work, it usually isn't working. The fourth piece of advice that I have is maybe like, this is something that I tell myself and makes me feel better about critique when people have maybe colder feedback, a little tougher feedback, and that's that we don't show perfect work in critique. There's no point in showing perfect work in critique. If you're bringing a piece that's perfect, then you're really missing out on like the whole purpose of critique, which is to get that constructive feedback and to improve. If you're bringing perfect work, it probably means that you're not really extending yourself in any way. And I mean, that's not the point of grad school. And then finally, I would say it's really important to invest in other people's critiques. Your investment in other people's critiques is going to improve you as an artist, and it's going to be so valuable to your classmates. And when people in your cohort see that you're invested, they'll be invested in your work too. And investment means preparing ahead of time, seeing the work early if you can, researching before critique, and actually, really doing the work, bringing notes, so that you're not experiencing the work entirely cold for the first time. In that 30-minute critique can be so tricky, and some people don't even get that. So I think whenever possible, preparing ahead of time and really being present and focused on bringing them what they need. So 5 pieces of advice.